In the back country of Midian, where the wind combs the hills and sheep where the pathways smooth, a man lives far away from his former name. Moses has become a keeper of another man's flock, a husband, a father, a quiet figure whose days are measured by the angle of the sun and the thirst of animals. Egypt is a memory that aches like an old wound, and the palace speech has drained from his mouth, replaced by the ordinary grammar of weather and pasture. He is not looking for God, he is looking for grass. He leads the flock to the far side of the wilderness, to a mountain locals call Horeb. Mountains can be classrooms, and this one holds a lesson that burns without hurry. Moses sees a bush lit with a fire that pays no tax to ash. Flame is supposed to be hungry. This flame is satisfied. It blazes and yet does not consume. Strange, he says to himself, because that is how curiosity talks when it is not yet ready to be wonder. I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn up. Turning aside is the first act of worship in the story. It is also the first step of revelation. God does not shout to compete with our forward motion. He waits for a turning. When the Lord sees that Moses has turned aside, he calls to him from the bush, doubling the name the way love does when it is urgent and tender. Moses, Moses. The answer is a simple offering. Here I am. He is still a shepherd, but the ground has become more than geology. Do not come any closer, says the voice. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. The holiness is not in the bush's species or the soil's minerals. It is in the presence that has arrived, the I who fills the place with meaning. God identifies himself not by abstract power but by relationship. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. The past is not a museum, it is a living covenant. Moses hides his face because even curiosity knows when it must bow. The fire does not need fuel because God's life does not depend on what he made. He is not a bigger version of the world. He is the one for whom the world is derivative. Then the voice that set galaxies spinning says words small enough to carry every grief. I have surely seen the affliction of my people. I have heard their cry. I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them. 3 verbs that change history: seen, heard, known, followed by the verb that follows love, come down. Moses had run from Egypt because he tried to fix oppression with his own hands and found his strength unable to hold justice in place. Now God names the pain and announces a rescue that is not a theory but a mission. But the mission is not delivered by a thunderbolt. It arrives in a calling that returns Moses to the very place he fled. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt. The sentence lands like a stone in Moses' chest. Who am I that I should go? This is the oldest human question in the face of a holy assignment. Identity trembles as if standing on a rope bridge. God answers not with flattery, but with himself. I will be with you. The guarantee is not Moses' capacity, but God's company. As if to anchor the future in worship, God adds a sign that will only make sense after obedience. When you have brought the people out, you will worship on this mountain. Moses anticipates another question, the kind that lives in the eyes of skeptical people. Suppose I go to them and they ask, what is his name? What shall I say? Names in scripture are not labels so much as revelations. God replies with a sentence that is both thunder and whisper. I am who I am. Say, I am has sent me to you. The phrase shatters the idol of control. God is not named by us. He names himself. He is being itself, life without borrowed breath, presence without expiration. Every false god asks for fuel. This God gives it. Still, Moses shrinks back into the mathematics of his limits. They will not believe me. My mouth is slow. The Lord answers with signs designed for a shepherd's hands, a staff that becomes a serpent and back again, a hand that turns leprous and then clean, as if to say, I can bend what threatens you into testimony. He promises that Aaron will share the speaking, but he does not rescind the call. The encounter is not a negotiation to reduce the mission to Moses' comfort. It is a furnace in which Moses' excuses are burned away until only trust can stand. If what you are hearing strengthens your spirit and you want more messages like this, please like, comment, share and subscribe so this reflection can reach someone who needs it. Now let us continue. Notice the choreography of Revelation. The bush blazes, Moses turns, God calls, Moses answers, God reveals, Moses protests, God equips, Moses obeys. This is not a one-time pattern, it is the daily liturgy of a life that learns to walk with God. The call is holy ground. The mission is holy ground. The fear is holy ground when it is handed back to the one who speaks from flame. Holiness is not brittle distance. It is burning nearness that does not destroy. We often imagine that God speaks only in cathedrals or at the end of moral perfection. But the voice finds Moses in his ordinary workday, near a shrub that would not have made it into anyone's travel brochure. The miracle is not meant to train us to chase spectacles. It is meant to teach us to turn aside. Your desk could be Horeb. Your commute could hold a fire that will not spend your life to ash. The instruction is the same. Take off the sandals of entitlement, the shoes of hurry, the thick soles of self-sufficiency. Pay attention with your skin. The name that God gives, I am, is not a riddle to decode. It is a relationship to inhabit. To say God is I am is to confess that every moment opens into his presence. Yesterday does not anchor him. Tomorrow does not threaten him. He is not almost arriving or recently departed. He is here, and his here-ness is the gift that makes obedience possible. When Moses asks, "Who am I?" the answer wraps his shaky identity inside a stronger name. You are the one I am with. The bush that burns without consuming is a picture of the way grace works in human lives. We expect the fire of calling to devour us, to use us up the way projects use people. But the presence of God burns differently. It purifies without humiliating. It energizes without exhausting. It warms without scorching the dignity of the one it touches. The early fathers called this the uncreated light, the energy of God's life that kindles ours without stealing it. In that light, we find that obedience is not a drain. It is a song whose notes teach us our true range. Moses' objections are familiar to anyone who has ever been asked to love beyond convenience. I do not have the right words. I do not have the right past. I do not have the right audience. God answers each, not by inflating Moses, but by relocating his trust. What is that in your hand? A staff. Then start there. God does not ask for what we do not have. He asks for what we are already holding, and then he shows how ordinary wood can become an instrument in a story too large for our resumes. The mission itself is not merely extraction from Egypt. It is formation for worship. Let my people go, that they may serve me. Liberation without worship becomes wandering. Freedom without formation becomes chaos. God intends to bring slaves out and teach them the grammar of freedom. Sabbath, covenant, neighbor love, a tent of meeting where presence is the architecture. The fire that calls Moses will later appear as a pillar, guiding and guarding a mobile sanctuary of light in a world of night. There is a tenderness in the way God speaks of Israel's pain. I have seen, I have heard, I know. Those verbs become a refuge for anyone who suspects their suffering is invisible. If the wilderness has taught you to keep your head down and your heart quiet, the burning bush invites you to lift your eyes. The Holy One is not indifferent to the bruises of his people. He is not the kind of king who needs the noise of flattery to notice. He bends low, he names, he sends, he stays. The story also confronts our modern towers of competence. We are tempted to believe that significance is the prize for efficiency and visibility. Moses' significance begins in anonymity in a desert where the only audience is sheep and sand. God's call is not a promotion. It is a participation in God's compassion. Success in the kingdom is measured not by scale, but by surrender. The bush burns in a corner of the world while empires clatter, and yet from that flame, history turns. Consider what it means to take off your sandals today. It could be the humility of confessing you have been walking on holy places with a casual heart. It could be the courage to step barefoot in a conversation you have avoided, or into a discipline you have postponed. It could be the choice to name your fear without giving it the steering wheel. Bare feet feel the world as it is. They teach you to tread gently. Reverence is not stiffness, it is attentiveness saturated with trust. When Moses asks for a name, God gives one that will echo in prayers and psalms and the breath of prophets. Generations later, a teacher from Nazareth will take that name on his lips and say, "Before Abraham was, I am," and the flame will be seen again, this time in the eyes that heal lepers and the words that steady storms. The voice from the bush becomes a voice in the marketplace, still calling people by name, still sending them into the pharaohs of their day with a courage borrowed from presence. Let us return to the mountain once more in imagination. The sheep have drifted, the wind has shifted, the bush still burns. Moses gathers his staff, the ordinary extension of his reach, and starts down the slope into the life he did not expect to reclaim. The sand records his steps, then erases them as sand always does.